And this is some of her artwork that's on the stage behind us. The abstract pieces. We're an artist family. We're a colony happening from Mabu. So this exhibit is called Lines, and it is about the connectedness of all of our pieces as human beings. We are our bones, we are our spirits, we're our arteries, we're our skin, and all of those things are interconnected. And with this exhibit, I was exploring a lot about, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard people talk about invoking your light and shining, or your inner being, how you access your inner being and you turn into and you shine bright light. So this exhibit for me was about really channeling what that actually means and the way that I see people. Because when I see people, I don't always see their exact faces. I see their light, and I see the things that are coming out from inside of them. My paintings use a lot of anatomy, so I use a lot of skulls, exposed spinal cords, exposed hearts, and things of that nature. And in this exhibit, I wanted to incorporate that, but incorporate that with an idea of how the lights in the city reflect off of our light as human beings. So thinking a lot about what it's like when you're driving into the city, or you're walking down the street in the city, you're downtown, the gallery place lights are shining, it's raining, there's cars driving by, there's stoplights, street lights, lights on the corner, and all of those things are reflecting off of you. But like this sister here, she has glasses on, and so when I'm looking at her, there's blue lights that are shining in her glasses. If I painted you, I would put those blue squares over your eyes. And blue is a color of peace and meditation. And so each one of these pieces, the women that are featured are invoking an idea of their light, of their inner source. Their inner shine is coming out. And we progress from a beginning space to an ending space. So you'll notice that the first couple, the lights that come over them, they still have a lot of brown on them, or they still have a lot of hard white, which is representative of their skin covering their skulls. And, then we get to the third piece where you see all white, but a lot of the different colors just washing in, over her. And then we start to get to where these women are composed entirely of lines and of different segments. I use a lot of cubism, I use a lot of surrealism. I used to be a realist portrait artist. And if you want to flip through, I do have some little $25 prints, not of any of this work, but of just some other random things like that. Hold on just a second. I know that you love me. I love you too. I do have some small print, and I have cards too, so you can kind of get an idea of some of the more realist work that I used to do, because you can kind of see it in the undertones of my work. This is kind of encompassing of 3 different styles that I have transitioned through over the last 10 years or so, from doing straight realism to venturing into more of an expressionist. Everybody can be whatever color they are and still be brown, because I paint brown people exclusively. So, so you can see that, and you can see now how they're kind of turning into an understanding of our shapes and the colors of our shapes. I am really into squares right now, as we can tell. Squares are always I wrote in my artist statement, if you get an opportunity to read it, please do, because it explains a lot about the composition of the pieces and why they're composed the way that they are. But squares are always in my graffiti work, and they channel the city. I love the city. I've always lived in the city. I moved out of my house when I was 17. I moved downtown because I like to be around the buildings. I like the shapes of the buildings. So a lot of the squares, are me really thinking about how the city is changing me, my family, the people around me, how it impacts the people around me, how it affects our light, how it affects our shine as we become bigger. I recently relocated from Denver to DC, and so that transition in cities it's been pretty amazing. So I don't want to talk you guys' ear off. Do you guys have any questions? Because I could go on and on and on about my own work. And Well, I mean, do you guys have any questions, or do you want to hear about anything specific? Yes.
I have a question. When did you feel that spark, whether you were young or you got older, when did you feel the first spark that you were going to do?
All right.
Sometimes you say you're little, but sometimes you get older and it hits you.
Yes. This is a two-tiered story. Can I tell y'all some personal business? Nobody can record this part. So, two-tiered. When I was, you know what's funny is that you were just telling the story about Monet. When I was in 4th grade, we went on a field trip to the art museum to see an impressionist exhibit. And I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, but wondered why there was no black people in boats sitting at the side of the lake having a picnic with flowers painted all softly. And I have I wear contacts. I can't see anything from about here out. Everything is just blotches of color for me, so my whole world looks impressionist. So when I was in about middle school, I was like, I'm going to be an impressionist painting, and I'm going to paint how I see the world in these kind of splashes of circular color because that's all I can see. Go ahead, baby. So, that was originally when I decided to be an artist. Between 4th grade and college, you get the you can't. That's not realistic. What are you gonna do besides that? What's your process? How's that gonna work? Go to college and study something real. So I went to college for journalism. Got a journalism degree, got a job at a newspaper, and got traumatized because obviously I'm sensitive and all open. And ended up when I was, I had a friend who got killed on my arm, and I would paint pictures of her all the time. Because I was a poet, and I couldn't write anything about her, but I would draw her face. Just all the time I would think about her, I would draw her face. So one day I was going through a lot, had a really bad breakup, and I was like 21, 22, so you're experimenting, you're kind of wild. Did some shrooms. Wonderful. Wonderful. And I went home and I was watching this Indiana Jones trilogy, and I painted one of the pieces that's at the front here. This one. And this piece is called Gold Standard, and it's about elevating the standard of the way that people treat me. Because I was going through a lot with my friends. I had just gotten out of a really bad relationship, and I was just like, I need to elevate how people treat me and how people interact with me. But that's a meditation that needs to affect everything that's around me, and so I painted it. I painted this piece for probably 8 hours just straight. And I was just completely out of myself, and it was the type of piece that when I was done with it, I went to bed. We was talking about this earlier. Went to bed. I woke up the next morning and I looked at it and I was like, I painted that? Oh, well, maybe something is coming through me, and I felt more at peace. But I also went out into my life and started having trouble with my friends and with the people who weren't at the standard that I was thinking about when I painted this. Trickled out of my life, and I realized that art is the one moment that I feel in sync, that I feel like I'm having a conversation with God, and God is talking right back to me, and what I'm thinking about, I can call into my life, I can manifest it when I'm drawing it, and when I'm picturing it as I draw it. So that's when I first was like, I am going to be a painter, because that is where my magic is. I'm good at a lot of things, I can write a journalism story, and send out a press release. I could get many jobs doing that. That's not magic to me. It doesn't feel like magic. When I was doing journalism, they would have me write obituaries a lot because of the way I capture people. And that was my claim to fame, was like, Cindy, she'll go write the obituary because she's going to hear something about them and capture them in a way that, nobody else here captures them. And I feel like I do that in my painting as well, but from a much more joyful place. So that's when I became a painter. I decided to be a painter. Is there any?
I have a question. What inspired you to do the lines, to think lines, and then go ahead and do the whole series?
So, more personal business. Lines for me is very much about, I'm kind of a wild person. and kind of an all over the place person. And I think that my paintings previously have reflected an aspect of that. And as I'm getting older and as I'm maturing, both in my personal life and as an artist, I feel a need for more definition, or for more control in what I'm showing and in the layers that I'm showing. So I can have this wild undercurrent happening, but I want some control over what happens on top of that and over what's layered on top of that. And so in lines, I was getting to a point where I was just cubing everything, and I was really thinking about my basic self, who I am as my basic self, and what shapes am I, and what colors am I, and incorporating some of the portraiture into that. You know, what places do I shade? What do I have this darkness in the cheekbones? Do I have this brightness under the eyebrows? And those little things. And then in lines, I was like, but I can show all of the magic that's moving through my spirit on top of me, so that you can see people the way that I can see people. Because like when I look at one of you, I see lines going around you like that. I see how the energy is traveling through your body. I can tell you your block right here on your shoulder, and that's what's stopping you from achieving whatever it is you're trying to. I see people's movement like that. And one of the biggest things I've been trying to do as an artist is, you know, I feel like oftentimes when you feel crazy, you want to explain yourself to people. And so I feel like with art, I can explain myself, I can explain my process without having to verbalize it to you. I can be like, well, you know, when I say I see somebody's light, that's what I mean when I say I see somebody's light. And so lines is about showing that, and it's about showing the ways that we evolve. And so, you know, like as we're looking at it from beginning to end, it evolves into like a more and more and more complex series of lines and a more and more complex series of shapes. So we start out, you know, where it's real basic in the squares and real big, and you can almost see them falling into place and where they shade, or maybe where they're removing themselves to become these more complex elements. And I think that that's something that's happening to me in my life as well. Does that answer your question?